Today, I will let Lousin introduce herself. We would love to know more about you, about the person, Lousin, before talking about negotiation. We would love to know, how did you get there? How did you get into this path of negotiation?
Sure. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for organizing these lives, because I mean, we all face adversity and we can all use a dose of resilience to overcome them. So I think it's amazing what you're doing, ladies. Thank you. Honored to be your guest. How did I become a professional negotiator? Yeah, that's a question I get asked often, because it's not that common, right? And people don't even know that it's an actual job. But yeah, I help companies with their complex negotiations. So that means either training their teams, their executives on how to negotiate better, be it sales, procurement, whatever contract negotiations they're having, or negotiate on their behalf or negotiate with them, help them go from a disagreement to an agreement when a non-agreement is not an option. The way I became a professional negotiator is I was working in finance, working in strategy sales for 15 years on trading floors of investment banks and the stock exchange. And I was lucky to have a human resource department that invested a lot in training. So we got trained by some of the world's best negotiators for a year-long masterclass. And I felt just so fascinated by the subject, because we all believe that we can negotiate, that it's just something that we do, like communication. But when I got taught the actual ways of doing it and the impact, and that it's so much broader, I felt so fascinated and I wanted to learn everything about it. I mean, there's influence, there's psychology, there's profiling. It's phenomenal. So I specialized in that, and then I joined the company actually and became one of their trainers, and now the global head of negotiation training. So we provide negotiation trainings all around the world and advisory. So yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you for sharing this journey. It's really interesting how you did this career change. How old were you when you did this career transition?
Well, I started working very early. I grew up with a family where, unfortunately, we weren't blessed financially. So I started working when I was 13.
Wow.
So yeah, I just didn't want to be a burden for my parents. So, and I was living in the Netherlands, where it's quite common to have like a summer job. So I started working part-time from the age of 13, and then started just paying everything myself. You know, my books, my school, my clothes, everything I needed, I paid for myself. So how old was I when I transitioned from so I was head of structured products in finance, and then I left in 2016. So how long is that ago?
6 years ago.
So I would say I did the career switch around 30 something. I'm 39. Voila, that's out there.
Thank you for being transparent in regards to your age. I appreciate it. I know that we women are usually very conspicuous when we are talking about our age. So the reason I asked you was that because many of us had transitioned from different careers, right? And there are many people who are forced to transition now because of the pandemic, right? They were forced because of the conditions worldwide to take the time, and some of them were forced because of their inner universe. You know, they had time to really engage with themselves, listen to themselves, and realize that whatever they were doing was not the right fit for them. But they were also forced by outer conditions. You know, they were either relieved from their workforce and whatever. So I was really curious and just wanted to share with people that I've met so many women and men lately who changed careers in their 30s, in their 40s, and they're very happy. And sometimes you are fortunate because it was by choice, right? And for the two of us, for me and Hanane as well, it was by choice. But even for the people who transition out of their careers into new ones, forced by outer conditions, doesn't mean that it's something bad, even though when you are in the transition in itself might sound bad. So I'm just curious, because our topic today is negotiating, and mostly negotiating with ourselves, right? How would you advise our listeners who are going through difficult transitions, either career changes or personal changes, to mitigate to negotiate with themselves? Because I know you also have a personal story that keeps you in a constant conversation with yourself, despite, the outer and career professional success.
Yes.
The woman Lousin has a personal story that it's very touching. And it's just wanting to understand from you, how do you negotiate with yourself in the circumstances of your life, and how would you advise people to negotiate with themselves when they're going through hard times and transitions that are difficult to digest sometimes?
Yeah. Well, that is a wonderful question. And the whole concept of negotiations with yourself actually started when I had that adversity in life. So maybe I would just share it and then we can build around it. So I was having this successful career, on paper, everything that I wanted, a good job, a good salary, etc., and thinking I was on top of the world. But I felt really, I wasn't at my place. So I went through a burnout several years ago, and then I even went through a depression. And there were moments that I was doing the job that looked so successful, but just not feeling happy and fulfilled. And I know I didn't belong there. But, when we are comfortable, that is a very dangerous situation, because often people don't change because they're comfortable. The salary is good enough, the title, the whatever it is that a job gives us is so good or comfortable that we don't listen to that inner voice that is telling us, you don't belong here. This is not what you want. This job is what you really wanted. Remember what you wanted to do when you were young? And that voice, if you don't listen to it, is going to start screaming, and it's going to start screaming with either a physical disease or, things that just don't work out, because it's trying to push us towards our life journey and our life mission and our purpose. I really believe that whatever happens is happening for us to push us in the direction where we kind of belong. But anyway, I was stubborn enough not to listen to that voice for many, many years until there came a point in my career where it was just, I couldn't stay anymore. All the signs were there. I had to leave. And I was lucky that the company was laying off many people with the voluntary plan. You just had to raise your hand, become a volunteer, and you got a package of money and training so you could go and do something else. So I was like, oh my God, the whole company is going to become empty now. Everybody's going to leave. And that didn't happen. There were very few people who actually left with that package, although it was very generous, because again, the fear of change is holding us back. The fear of the uncertain, the fear of our own capabilities is what holds us back. So many people prefer to be unhappy, but in a known situation, than risking going for the happiness in an unknown situation. Now, if you do have the courage to break through that and to have confidence in yourself, in life, and say, whatever happens, I'm going to stand back up. It's exactly this resilience that you ladies talk about. If you know that you have that and you can build on that, that's when people make the jump and then go for what's better. So that's what I did. 2016, I did an entire year of beautiful trainings. I did executive coaching, parental coaching, MBTI, everything that I wanted to always learn about. And I loved that year. It was seriously one of the best years of my life. And at the end of that year, I got my degree and I thought, oh, wow, wonderful. Now I'm going to become an executive coach and I'm going to teach people about negotiations, etc. So I launched my company of going on my own, a bit scary, but still, in February 17. And literally 1 month later, hell breaks loose. That's when we found out that my son, who was only 5 years old at that age, that they told us he has a severe disease. And we really don't know what, but we're examining. So that's when you really go through hell, like what's happening, for 5 years thinking your son is fine and then boom. And then 3 months later and many, many doctor visits, we found out the diagnosis, which is Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And that is a disease that breaks down his muscles slowly but surely. And unfortunately, there's no cure. And it's 100% fatal. So he's going to die from this. We don't know when, but the average life expectancy is about 25. And it's getting worse and worse. So, he can't walk anymore. He's in a wheelchair. By next year, he might not be able to eat alone anymore. It's progressive and getting worse and worse. He's losing his muscle functions until the heart being the last one. So that is what happened. And then all of a sudden, boom, your whole world shifts, right? Like everything you think you knew doesn't exist anymore. It's like the ground under you gets ripped off, and you're like, wow, what's happening now? And how am I going to face this? And how am I going to live with this? And that is when the negotiation starts. I remember negotiating with God, even, like, of course, we all have the same questions when adversity hits. Why me? Why this disease? Yeah. And I had all those questions, and I negotiated with God, saying, God, please give me the disease, cure him, let me go, give my life to him. All those crazy stuff that I think any mother would think when you're going to lose your child. So I had all these negotiations, and then at one point I realized I was negotiating, and then I thought, wait, if I can negotiate with God, I can also negotiate with myself. And since I'm on both ends of the negotiation, I get to decide what the outcome is. And whether I want to make it a pity job of, oh, why me? Poor me, or say, okay, there's a reason for this. I don't know what it is. So then let me fill it in what the reason is. And maybe it was to wake us up. Maybe it was to enjoy life more. Maybe it was to appreciate life more. And that's why we lived in Paris by then. And that's why we decided, you know what, if we have to live with this, might as well make life the best possible that we can for our child. So that's why we decided to go to Dubai and just start over and give him a fantastic life. So here we are.
Wow, amazing. I'm so sorry that you have to go through all that. And thank you for sharing this story of great resilience. I can relate to that. In fact, I've heard a lot of stories of resilience, and some people, they may face difficulties for a few weeks, for a few months, and for even few years. And what is really challenging, and maybe in your case, in my case, because that was my story is a little bit different, but I lost my eye at the age of 9 years old. And all these years I had to overcome also other hurdles. So I have a question, and this is something also that I had to go through, because here is being comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yeah, beautiful.
Because you see, how can you become comfortable in the uncomfortable? Because you see, your story of resilience today, it's not about one shot. Okay, I'm going to handle it and it's over. Or in few months, it's over. It's something that you have to handle on a daily basis. And even after that, you need to handle also a lot of emotions and a lot of things that may be happening. So how can you, from your perspective, be comfortable in the uncomfortable? And this may help people who are watching us today. They may be facing difficulties. Of course, it depends on the kind of difficulty. So what can you say?
Well, it's beautiful what you say, Hanane, becoming comfortable in the uncomfortable. And this is typically something that, you came with because of your situation. Losing your eyesight at 9, it's not something temporarily that you then, you accept and you move on. It's continuous and every day and every day. And with the fact that my son's disease is progressive, makes it that it gets worse and worse. And I know tomorrow will be worse than today. And still I have to remain positive, and still I have to enjoy. So how do you do that? The thing, I think it might sound quite harsh, but it starts with a decision. You decide. And that is why I am now looking back, feeling blessed that I went through burnout and depression during my years in finance. Because I remember when we got the diagnosis, I immediately thought about that year. I was in depression for 13 months. And I immediately thought, that's not going to happen again. We're not going back there. I know it. I've been there. It hurts. We're not going back there. So if depression is not an option, then what can I do with the pain that I feel? And that's when I said, okay, I am deciding that from now on, I'm going to enjoy life. That became our North Star, quality of life, because quantity of life was been taken away. But quality of life is something that you decide, because that's completely between your ears. You decide if you have a good life. You decide what a good life means. You decide what a good life should look like. Instead of looking at what media is trying to tell us, or society, or Instagram, it's what do you think? makes your life good and worthy, etc. So you, Hanane, having gone through all this and then having decided to, you know what, I'm going to write about it, I'm going to speak about it, I'm going to make this show about it. Imagine how many people you've already touched by deciding that you are going to use your pain as an inspiration. And that is something beautiful that then happens. I started sharing Alex's story only recently, and the feedback has been just so amazing that lifts me up, thinking, you know, maybe this happened for this, you know, maybe since I am a speaker, maybe I was supposed to share this story. Maybe I'm not supposed to speak only about my corporate negotiation stuff. Maybe the life negotiations is what really matters in a, you know, fulfillment point of view and adding value to humanity. You know, that might sound big and I want to stay humble here, but you give it some meaning. You give the hardship meaning and you say there is a reason for this. And the reason is not just to suffer. That just can't be true, you know. And I believe that we were born for a reason and that it's magical that we exist. So I'm convinced I wasn't born to suffer. You know, I was born to enjoy and to have fun and to make something out of life. And despite this disease, I continue to do that. And I teach my children to do that. So how do you become comfortable in the uncomfortable is by not fearing the uncomfortable, is by realizing that the uncomfortable is part of life and that it's okay and that we have all the tools to be uncomfortable. And that we have to stop, you know, acting like we have to be all happy and joyful and positive all the time. That's nonsense. We have to learn to go through the emotions and say this is part of life too.
Yeah, I really love what you shared, and thank you for sharing this, because I think there is a huge pressure and a huge expectation that people have that life should be easy and everything. Yes, because perfect. I think it's very much out there because of social media, and we are using social media, and I'm not blaming social media. I don't think social media is a bad thing, but the way some people use social media just to present the glitter and the glamour of their life creates an expectation in other people's who just stand by and watch that life should be like that for everyone, and you feel bad and you feel guilty and you feel depressed and anxious when your life doesn't match the expectation that it's created by other people's lives. And I think just being real and just accepting that life has its ups and downs, and it's been like that forever. It's not only because of the past 2 years or because past 5 years, whatever. It's been like that forever. During the evolution, humanity faced highs and lows regularly, and I think accepting that it's really important, and it makes it easier to know that it's a cycle. Sometimes bad cycles might last longer, but as you said, we all have the tools to go through that as long as we accept. And you call it a decision, I call it a choice. As long as you choose to move on and to focus on the positive in your life, which I think is a very strong skill and important skill in building resilience, finding the positive, finding, as you said, the meaning about whatever you're going through, a positive meaning. Because I also believe, like you, that I was not brought here just to pay my bills, eat, sleep, and then suffer, and then go 6 feet under. I don't believe in that. Also, I do believe that we were all brought here for a reason. And I think it's so beautiful. And I just there was a question that I wanted to ask you, because we negotiate with ourselves a lot, but many of us in the everyday lives, we also negotiate with others, right? Whether with our kids, with our spouses, in our jobs. I was curious if you consider that learning to negotiate better with yourself has an impact on the way you negotiate with others.
Oh, yes, definitely. And the other way is true too. When you become a better negotiator and you learn what it takes to be a good negotiator, I always say the reason why I'm so passionate about my job of teaching people is I come in and I say, I'm not going to teach you how to negotiate better. I'm sure you know how to negotiate. I want to inspire you to become a better negotiator. I'm going to work on the person so that you incarnate all those skills and you become a better negotiator. Why? Because when we become a better negotiator with the skills that I'm going to share, we automatically become better people. Now, when we want to be a good negotiator, we have to have certain basic skills that if you don't have it, you simply can't be a good negotiator. So if you want to be a good negotiator, ethical negotiator, the one that really has one goal, and that is to come to an agreement in a disagreement when there is conflict, then you have to be able to, one, remain calm under circumstance, because most people don't like conflict. Conflict is stressful. Conflict is annoying. Conflict is painful.
Yeah.
So how do you remain calm and how do you stay focused? That is super important. And in order to remain calm, you need to know yourself. You need to know what triggers me, what gets me angry, how do I respond to stress, what are my values, what matters to me, how can somebody really piss me off? And when you know those things, that's when you can work on the superpower of remaining calm under any circumstance. Now, when you do that, and you're going to have less, snapping out against people, boom, you become a better negotiator, you become a better person. And then another skill, listening. The golden silence, silence is golden, they say, because you listen and you hear. When you're doing it actively and passionately, you understand what is being said and what is being meant. How is it being said? What does somebody really mean? What matters to them? What, moves this person? And then how can I connect to them? So active listening is such a beautiful skill that unfortunately the majority of people don't have. So if you develop that, you really stand out, because we can all remember somebody in our lives that made an impact on us. And if you think about it, it was often because they listened. They saw you, they heard you, there's something with listening skills that is there. And then if you think about the whole aspect of empathy, for example, wanting to understand what matters to somebody else, which again, then you demonstrate through actively listening and being present. And the whole aspect of agility, you need to be super agile if you want to be a good negotiator. Resilience. So all those skills that you need to be a good negotiator, do you see how you then automatically become a better person? If you listen better, if you connect to people, if you bond, if you want to come to an agreement, if you use, kindness and collaboration. Imagine what a better place the world would be if everybody would do that, if everybody would develop those skills. So the same way you become a better negotiator with others, you become a better negotiator with yourself, because once you know how to listen, you can sit down when you're facing adversity and say, what does this do to me? And then listen internally. What is it that I'm feeling? What matters to me? What is happening right now that is creating this pain? And what do I decide or choose, as you beautifully say, to do with it, right? And then you take your power back. You said, okay, this happened, and we all face adversity in the last few years. Look at COVID. Look at the impact of COVID and, being in house arrest, as I call the lockdowns. The impact that had on people, it's massive. I mean, not everybody survives. I'm not even talking about the virus. I'm talking about suicide, etc., because it was too hard. Not everybody came out of this alive. So the mental toughness that we all had to go through. And then you think back again on listening to myself. What is this doing to me? What is important to me? What needs do I have that is not being met right now? And how can I get that need met ethically? All those things, it's negotiation skills. So I'm really passionate by teaching people how to negotiate better. I'm saying you negotiate better with yourself as well, and then you make better decisions, and then automatically you become a better spouse, you become a better parent, you become a better friend, and professional, of course.
Yeah. Well, let's listen more to ourselves in order to improve our active listening, and let's grow also more, develop more empathy toward the self, to empathize with others. So I would like to ask you a last question about your lessons that you learned that made you a resilient person, based on your story of resilience, what happened to your son. This is a subject very dear to me, because I do a lot of modelization, and I read a lot of stories of resilience. And not only because I wanted to develop expertise in this field, but because I wanted to help myself first grow resilient, because it's a lifelong process for someone, as I said, who has to handle adversity for the rest of his life or her life. It's not just one event and 1 month and it's over. It's on a daily basis. So what will be? I'm sure that the people who are listening to us would benefit from this. So what's the
lessons? I see the beautiful comments. Thank you, everybody, for everything you're writing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So what would be the lessons that you learned from your story? Because I know that differ from one person to another. So what about you?
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting question. I haven't necessarily thought about it, but hearing you say, we often see people that are very resilient and then we have this respect, right? Like, wow, how do they do it? And I've often heard from people, how do you do it? I would never be able to, continue to smile if my son is sick. I would never be able to continue to be happy. And here I am to say, yes, you would. It's just because we haven't been faced a certain adversity that we think we can't handle it. But humanity, people, we are so resilient naturally. I think everybody is born resilient. We just don't believe that about ourselves. And then when we face adversity, and I have to be strong. It's not that I decided, I'm going to be strong. I have to be strong. We all know a woman is such an important pillar in a family. If I fall in depression, everybody's like a domino is going to follow. I don't have a choice. I have to be strong. I have to be strong for my family. And then you realize, you look back and you say, wow, I've been strong in that event. I've been strong in that event. That happened. That knocked me down and I got back up. That happened. I got back up. And then you have proof. And then you're like, oh, I'm a resilient person. So that gives you strength for future things that will happen. And so we have to actively look at our lives and say, look at all the shit you already went through. And you're still standing and you're still going strong. So that deserves credit. And that is proof for yourself that you are resilient. For example, before having my son's diagnosis, the story that I used in my head was I gave birth to my daughter without painkillers, without epidural and stuff. And I was so proud of that because that was by choice. Like, I want to do this naturally. And then I did
that, by the way, too.
Me too.
Yeah, look at this. 3 women giving birth without painkillers. Gentlemen in the audience, it's just Mission Impossible. So yeah, this is amazing. But then it gives you strength, doesn't it, for the rest of your life? You think back, because now when I have a dentist appointment or something, anything, and somebody's hurting me, I'm like, hey, I gave birth without epidural. I can handle anything.
So true.
Pain. So we have to actively, write down, this is what we did. This is what we did. Jamie, well done.
Exactly.
In the audience, that's me too. Yeah. So we need to write it down. Like, look back on your own life and all the things you went through and that you thought was difficult in that moment, yet you overcome. And that is proof. That is proof of showing we're all resilient. And we don't have to look at people going through adversity with a smile and say, oh, they're so inspiring. You are inspiring. You went through a lot of things and you can go through a lot of things. And if life decides to test you one day, you will be able to get back up, because again, it's a decision, it's a choice, and we all have the tools that it takes. And of course, it has nothing to do with denying it or downplaying it or saying it's not that bad. It's not that at all. It's accepting what is, accepting what you can't change, go all in on what you can influence, and also use, one of the lessons I learned is this element of freedom. When this happened, it's like everything you know about life gets shifted. Like, nothing is what it seemed anymore. Like, what do you mean my son is going to die before me? It's just not natural. That's not the way life's supposed to be. So then everything else becomes also like, is that true? Is that real? Is that how it's supposed to be? But then I got this immense feeling of freedom of saying, you know what? The page is completely white. I'm going to fill in the way I want to live my life. So I'm going to go to Dubai. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And, with my husband together, we became very open-minded about everything, saying we can live life the way we want to. Nobody's going to tell us what's good for our son or what we should do, or none of that matters. We decide. So it just broadened our mindset and the way we think about life and about people. And life simply became much more fun.
Well, thank you. You are really an inspiration. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Hanane. So are you. Thank you, Steluta.
Thank you for sharing your story with us, and thank you for being so open and vulnerable and so strong at the same time. I want to take a minute and acknowledge our viewers here. Isa wrote a really beautiful story here and kind of like captured in a few sentences what we said here. Jamie, who is also a strong woman, Omar, Aditya, I'm sorry for, butchering your name. Shoaib, Safiz, Margaret. Heidi, hi Heidi. Heidi is one of our colleagues from our coaching school. Nasril, Syed, Atul, James. Hi, Rolando, Homie. So many people. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I don't have time to go through all of this. Thank you for taking time. Thank you for giving us your precious time, because it's I consider it the most precious resource. We never get it back, right? So we are grateful for you investing your time with us. Thank you, Lousin, for also sharing your precious time with us. I think there is a lot of learning that has been done here. And I think there is a lot of power in our conversation today, and people have a lot to take away from it. Guys, just before we go, Lousin, can you share where can people find you and connect with you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, I think in the last 48 hours, I've been asked like 10 times, what is your Instagram? And I'm like, hello, people, I'm not on Instagram. People automatically assume you're on Instagram. I'm not on Instagram. I'm only on LinkedIn. That's it. That's where I share a lot, personal stuff, professional stuff, anything about negotiation and emotional intelligence, I share on LinkedIn. So happy to connect on LinkedIn. I recently launched a podcast called Life Negotiations, where I talk exactly about this. How can we use negotiation skills to face adversity? And I talk with fascinating professional negotiators from the FBI and all walks of life. So that's fun, and that you can find on YouTube. So just Google me and you'll find me.
You may need to think about Instagram in the future.
No, I'm not doing it. I like to be different. I'm not on Insta.
Okay. Then TikTok. No, just okay.
Cool, guys. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here with us, guys. Guys, feel free to connect with Lousin, with Hanane, with me here on LinkedIn, on other social media. I'm on Instagram, and Hanane is on Instagram as well, and on Facebook. Lousin is not. She just keeps it cool, and she wants to be very different than all of us. And I appreciate you and acknowledge you for that. Follow us, share this conversation with somebody that you think might find inspiration, might find something valuable out of it. And stay tuned till next Tuesday when we have the next episode. See you guys. Bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hanane. Thank you, Lousin.
Thank you, everyone.